Benjamin counted everything again, compared it all, and realized that his business was slowly collapsing and his grandfather's hopes were not being fulfilled. His grandfather, a well-known restaurateur in the city, had handed over the reins to his grandson 5 years ago. As long as he was alive, it was much easier for Benjamin to work. His grandfather always gave valuable advice, and that helped a lot in the business. But now, things were not going very well. A noise distracted him from his sad thoughts. It was strange because the restaurant had not yet opened. Benjamin looked out of his office and saw that all his subordinates had gathered around the reception desk and were laughing loudly. Benjamin went to them to see what had cheered them up so much. As he got closer, he saw that the cause of the merriment was a middle-aged man who looked like a hobo. He stood with his head down, and the administrator, Tina, laughed at him. She grinned and asked him if he was hoping to work as a chef in their French restaurant. The poor man calmly replied that he could do this job perfectly well. Tina laughed and jokingly hinted to the restaurant's real chef, Oliver, to be more careful with such competition. Oliver snorted back and said that this bum had hardly seen anything but leftovers in his life and had no idea about cooking. The poor man didn't respond to the angry outburst, but Benjamin became outraged at the situation. He had long been aware of all the machinations of the chef behind his back, but unfortunately he could not find a replacement for him yet. Suddenly, Benjamin had a strange idea. He asked if the stranger knew anything of French cuisine, and the man began to call one intricate name of dish after another. Tina froze in surprise, and Benjamin suggested that the chef and the poor man prepare the same dish. If Oliver won, he would receive $500, and if he lost, they would hire the tramp. Everyone fell silent and waited for Oliver's reaction because he was not only very greedy for money, but he was also too proud of his culinary talents. Once he had really been a high-class cook. People from all over the city came to try his dishes, but over the years he became lazy. Clients began to come less often, and as a result, the profitable place began to bring in much less income than an ordinary cafe. Oliver was greatly insulted by such an offer and wanted to leave in an offended manner, but someone in the crowd shouted to him that if he left, the hobo would automatically become the winner, and Oliver had to agree to participate in the competition in the evening. Benjamin did not understand how he could have decided on such a venture. He knew from the tramp that his name was Sean. He could not let him into the kitchen looking like this, so he invited the man into his office so he could wash and change. There wasn't much time left before the appointed time. Sean was sitting quietly in Benjamin's office waiting for the start of the competition. Benjamin was losing confidence by every minute. Uncertainty about his decisions always accompanied him. Even his grandfather had told him that if a thing was done, he should move on and not regret what he had done. His wife left him for the same reason, saying that she was tired of making decisions in their family. And even when she was leaving and taking their son with her, he just stood and couldn't say anything or insist on anything. Meanwhile, the entire staff had already gathered in the kitchen. Someone suggested choosing independent judges, and Tina hurried into the hall to make arrangements with some of the visitors. When the judges were found, the competition began. 40 minutes were allotted per dish, and in an hour, Sean and Benjamin were celebrating the victory. When only Sean and Tina were left in the restaurant, Benjamin wondered to what job to hire the winner. Tina regarded Sean thoughtfully. Having washed and changed his clothes, he seemed to her quite a decent man now, although he had no documents and refused to restore it. And then Tina, on her own responsibility, suggested that Benjamin could take Sean in as her assistant. The young woman was instinctively sure that Sean would be able to cope, and Benjamin agreed. Many people were shocked by the news of his appointment as an administrator's assistant, and even the waiters whispered that Benjamin had lost his mind. But a week later, when Sean had already taken a shift on his own, Tina came to Benjamin and said that the new administrator knew the business even better than she did. Sean worked with enthusiasm. He and Tina often stayed up late thinking about the changes that needed to be made in the restaurant, sometimes involving Benjamin. They changed the layout and the menu, and within a month, the restaurant had as many guests as it never had, even under Benjamin's grandfather. Once, when the day's proceeds surpassed all expectations, Benjamin invited Sean into his office to celebrate success and for a conversation that had been long overdue. Sean understood that he should tell the truth about his past, even though he knew that he would most likely be fired because no one would employ a criminal who was hiding from the law. But first they talked about Benjamin. Sean asked if Benjamin had a family. He even thought that maybe he and Tina were together. But Benjamin, having poured them some cognac, told him that he had lost his family because of his indecision. Sean sincerely did not understand what Benjamin's problem was and why he, if he loved his wife so much, could not pull himself together and stop being a wimp. They talked for a long time, and it was Sean's turn to tell his life story. Sean sighed heavily and told Benjamin that he had come from the capital where he had owned a chain of fast food cafes. The business was lucrative, and he became a wealthy man, married a beautiful woman, and a month after the wedding, found her with her fitness trainer in the bedroom. Jealousy clouded Sean's mind. He pushed her onto the bed, but she fell on the nightstand and passed out. The trainer shrieked, and Sean ran away from the horror of what he had done. He has been wandering ever since. He really has no willpower, otherwise he wouldn't have been hiding in the back alleys for 6 months. Sean expected Benjamin to kick him out right away, but he only promised Sean that he would leave things as they were until he found out something about what had happened. The next day, the hall was once again full of visitors, and Sean stood at the counter and saw that Benjamin, looking out into the hall, had quickly disappeared and was desperately giving him some kind of signs. Sean went up to the boss and he explained that his wife and son were sitting in the hall and that he did not know what to do. Sean immediately calmed Benjamin down and advised him to go and talk to his family and invite them for the weekend. Benjamin was imbued with Sean's confidence, pulled himself together, and went to the hall. Sean saw Benjamin walk up to the table and take a seat. The woman smiled at him and the child immediately climbed onto his lap. Sean asked the waiter to bring them fruit, ice cream, and champagne quickly, and he received praise from Tina. He glanced at her and realized that he probably felt in love with this young woman. A little later, a joyful Benjamin came up to them and told them that his wife had agreed to spend the entire weekend with him in nature. He asked with a smile if Tina and Sean could manage without him, and they assured him that there would be no problems. That day, Sean walked Tina home. She invited him to come over, and it so happened that he stayed with her until morning. But in the morning, she found him in the kitchen in a gloomy mood. On inquiries from the woman, he confessed his love for her. A happy Tina also told him that she had been in love with him for a long time and that she was ready to begin her life with him from the beginning. But Sean grew even more gloomy. He confessed to her his sad story, and given that he did not want to hide further, they were not destined to be happy for many more years. After his confession, Tina said firmly that she would wait for him as long as it took, but asked him to wait 3 more days in which they would be happy before turning himself in to the police. And they were insanely happy. On the last day, Tina often cried, going over various possible options, but one thing was clear. It was impossible for Sean to go on living like this and being afraid all the time. When Benjamin came back, glowing with happiness, he saw Sean and Tina's gloomy faces. He was surprised and asked what was going on, and they told him that they loved each other but that Sean had decided to go to the police so they would not be happy. To their surprise, Benjamin only laughed, and Sean and Tina could not understand why their boss had such a strange reaction. Benjamin invited them into his office and told them what the matter was. It turns out that he had hired a private detective a couple of weeks ago and found out that, in fact, Sean's wife was alive and was about to inherit all his fortune, including the cafe network. Sean was declared dead, and they even found his body and buried it. The man stood pale and stunned at the thought that he had suffered all this time for nothing, and at the same time he felt incredibly relieved that he had not done anything terrible to his wife. 6 months later, Benjamin and his pregnant wife were witnesses at Tina and Sean's wedding. Benjamin constantly took care of the woman, worried about her well-being, and only his wife's stern gaze made him calm down, at least for a while. Sean forgave his ex-wife, and she was not put in jail for the coffin fraud. Sean realized that, if not for her betrayal, he never would have met Tina, his destiny. And the fitness trainer disappeared as soon as he found out he wasn't going to get the money. Tina was beautiful in her loose-fitting dress, which did not conceal her rounded belly. They walked down the aisle and glowed with love. Sean's mother cried with happiness, and the young waitresses sighed softly and dreamed that one day they would meet a hobo like Sean on their way.